Types of feedback, stages of learning, and learning plateaus. By Jayden and Andrea. The types of feedback. The first type of feedback is positive feedback, and this is the feedback that you receive when you've done something well and been successful in your performance. Continuous feedback is the constant feedback that you're given whilst you're performing to correct any mistakes. Negative feedback is the feedback that you receive when there's something you can improve on, and terminal feedback is the feedback that you're given after the performance is finished. Intrinsic feedback is the feedback that you give yourself and comes from within. Knowledge of results is the feedback that you're given about the overall outcome of the game, which is influenced by your performance. Extrinsic feedback is a feedback that comes from someone else, and this is normally a more knowledgeable other. And knowledge of performance is the feedback that tells you how well you have performed in your performance. The stages of learning. The cognitive stage is the first stage, which is where the performer makes many mistakes, coaching is required, and there is no mental image formed of the skill, and motivation is necessary in order for them to continue to the next stage of learning. Associative learners make fewer mistakes, they're more independent in their learning, they have a mental image starting to be formed, and they do this through trial and error learning, which suits their personal preferences. And then autonomous learners make minimal mistakes, they're completely independent in their learning, they have a full mental image formed of the skill, and therefore can do it without any conscious thought. Suitability of feedback. Cognitive learners will benefit from positive, negative, and extrinsic feedback in order to motivate them and so they know how to improve. Associative learners will benefit from continuous and extrinsic feedback so that they can correct any mistakes, and they can also have them start to know how they can improve themselves so they can give it intrinsically. And then autonomous learners will benefit from knowledge of performance and results and terminal feedback so that they know the overall outcome of how their performance has worked, and they do not need it during their performance either.
Now we are talking about the learning plateau. A learning plateau is a period during performance where there are no signs of improvement. The performer does not appear to be getting any better at doing the task. This lack of improvement can be illustrated by a graph called learning curve. This curve should be divided in 4 different stages. Stage 1, where the rate of learning is low and performance level is poor because the performer is new to the task and is in the cognitive stage of learning. At stage 2, there is a rapid acceleration in the rate of learning because the performer has begun to master the task and gain some success, providing reinforcement and motivation. At stage 3, there is no improvement in the rate of learning and the performance has reached the plateau. The performance maintains the same level. Stage 4 is a period towards the end of the task when, perhaps due to the fatigue, the performance may deteriorate. The plateau effect can be caused by a number of reasons like lack of motivation, because the lack of incentives or extrinsic rewards may cause the performer to lose drive and energy for the task, boredom, because the repetitive nature of closed skill may cause boredom, coaching, because the coach may issue incorrect instruction or use incorrect practice methods so that the skill is not done correctly, limits of ability, because the performer may not improve simply because they have reached the full extent of their ability. They can't improve basically because they don't have the underlying skill level. Targets set too low. Perhaps the task is one that does not allow the learner to use the full range of their skill, so they can't improve because the limits of the task do not allow them to. Fatigue, because continuous action over an extended period of time would inevitably result in tiredness, especially if the same muscles are being used repeatedly. But how can we avoid a learning plateau? Well, there are some solutions, like the task could be extended so that a new challenge to test the performer is given, and new targets or goals could be set to see if such task extensions are met. Or the player could find a new coach to raise performance level. Perhaps this coach could offer more prize and positive reinforcement to provide motivation. Or a rest could be taken to avoid fatigue. There are other methods like more variety could be added to the task, so boredom might be avoided, or the concept of of the plateau could be explained to the performer so that they do not take personal responsibility for that lack of improvement, or the player could get some feedbacks to help improve performance and motivation.